And at this point, it was embarrassing for me to keep ignoring them. I did the only reasonable thing. I got up, went home and talked to Harley. Here's what we did next. First, we called the hospital to file an official complaint against their employee Francine. They assured us they could verify who accessed Harley's records, and they would keep us informed about the situation as soon as possible. Then, we sat down and meticulously drafted in great detail how my sisters had treated Harley since we started dating, culminating in the prank of swapping her pills. We posted it on Facebook, tagging every single cousin, aunt and uncle who had been criticizing us for punishing my poor sisters and prioritizing my girlfriend. I don't know if Francine will be fired for violating my wife's privacy, but I do know that several family members have called to apologize, and the social status my sisters love so much is now crumbling beneath their feet. Update 5. Hello, it's me, the guy with the crazy sisters who hate his wife and basically poisoned her because we didn't name our baby after them. First, some positive news. I'm now the father of 2 beautiful and healthy children, Justin and my beloved daughter, Maxim. My beautiful wife is at the end of her maternity leave and is enjoying every moment with our daughter. Now, let's get to what you're really reading this update for, which is about a month overdue. Remember our little 2-step plan? Well, it worked out better, or worse, depending on how you see it, than we ever could have imagined. Let's start with Francine, my mom's fiancée. Well, ex-fiancée. You see, it was determined very quickly that she was the one who accessed Harley's records, and after some official proceedings, her nursing license was revoked. She was fired, and she was fined for her violation. After all that, she wasn't too excited about the idea of marrying the woman whose son had reported her. Before you start feeling sorry for my mom, she still stands by all her opinions, and now she's joined my sisters on the Harry is poisoning my mind ship, except now she's on that ship without a companion. Speaking of my sisters. Remember that little Facebook post where I shared the full story with my relatives, whom they had been using as pawns in their games to harass my wife? Well, it ended up reaching a bit farther than expected. So far, in fact, that it somehow reached the dean of their university, where both were studying nursing. It's safe to say they were expelled from the program, and while they're probably smart enough to get into another program, having that on their record isn't going to be good for either of them. Harley and I, however, are thriving as a family of 4. I may not be getting much sleep between diaper changes and late-night feedings, but I have a lot more peace than I ever had before. So I guess that's it for my story. Important comment, you were there and you ended up ruining the lives of not 1, not 2, but 4 women, all because of a prank that, in the end, was harmless. And a mother who was just taking care of her son and grandchild with all the resources available to her. I understand that you clarified what really happened to your family so they would stop attacking your wife. I really do. But to go as far as allowing this to reach the dean of their school, and getting them expelled from what must have been a competitive program. That's just going too far. Cut them out of your life, never speak to them again, sure, but why do this? They had their whole future ahead of them. And then you ruin the career of a woman whose only crime was loving your mom, which I will never, ever understand. All of this is just hateful, and I don't wish any harm on your children, but I hope you have a wake-up call someday. Update 6. I know it's a bit late. But first of all, I want to thank everyone who supported me and said I did nothing wrong, especially in relation to that comment that got kind of popular in my last update. I'll use this space to respond to that person. First, regarding the Facebook post, I only made a post telling what happened, and if that reached the dean of my sister's university, it's not something I control. They exposed themselves with their behavior, and the post just clarified the facts. So, I don't understand how it's supposed to be my fault that it affected them. People have the right to know the truth. And if that had consequences, it's not because I deliberately ruined their lives. I wasn't the one who sent it to the dean. As for Francine, my mother's fiancée, I wasn't the one who violated a patient's privacy. That's a very serious ethical and professional violation. And honestly, it was my duty as a husband and father to report it. Confidentiality in the medical field is sacred. And her decision to access Harley's records without consent is something I can't and shouldn't ignore. If that makes me the bad guy, as that person implied, then, well, maybe in their eyes I am. But I'd rather be the bad guy who stands up for his family than the good guy who lets a violation of rights go unpunished just because it was done by someone close to me. That said, I want to tell you something else I did, something I didn't reveal before because I wasn't sure if my mom or my sisters might be reading this space. Also, I had been waiting for my wife to recover from childbirth before making the final decision. The thing is, after a lot of thought and discussion with Harley, we decided to press formal charges against my sisters. What they did wasn't a simple prank, but an action that could have endangered my wife and our unborn daughter. I know some of you might think this is an extreme measure, but I couldn't just let what they did slide. What kind of message would I be sending if I didn't act legally in such a serious situation? Switching medications and playing with a pregnant woman's health is not a joke or a prank, it's a crime. But I also know many of you are wondering what happened after we pressed charges. Well, don't expect a major punishment or years in jail for my sisters, since fortunately there wasn't severe harm to my wife or daughter. In the end, they were found guilty of a minor offense, so the sentence was lighter. Both were fined $2,000 each in addition to community service. I'm sure the person who left the critical comment will be upset by this and will probably think I'm still causing harm to my poor sisters who are already going through a lot. But I guess for that person putting a pregnant woman's life and her baby's health at risk isn't that serious. Apparently, in their world, That's just a funny prank, and not a serious issue that should be taken with all due responsibility. Fortunately, most of you have understood the gravity of the situation, so that's the final update I wanted to share with you.